Right, we'll kick off, I think, folks. So welcome one and all. Nice to see so many of you here in the IQ building this evening. And nice to see returning members and some new members as well. So lovely to see you here and welcome. So I hope you'll be joining up and joining in all the fun and coming up to the observatory and everything else that we get up to, which is lots, certainly recently, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this evening you've got to put up with us lot, I'm afraid, the intrepid Eclipse explorers. So we'll come to that in a bit. So tonight's programme then will be a combination of Paul Pocklington, who is in Lincoln. He's a member who joins us on Zoom. Gaynor and Maggie, who's there now. And then myself. Wendy was going to be here, but she had a bit of a mishap earlier on and she's zooming in, I think. I don't know if you're
Yes,
already online.
I saw Wendy online, yeah.
Okay.
Well, her iPad anyway.
There we are.
So,
Okay.
Wendy's iPad.
Yeah, hello there, Wendy. Right, good to have you on, and you can chip in when needed. So that's good. So afterwards, we'll have questions, any questions, and some points of interest, and then a roundup of members' images and sketches, and any other business. So on with the announcements then. Last month, or last fortnight ago, we talked about the AGM being postponed due to Phil's illness. You'll be glad to hear that Phil is out of hospital today, so we wish him well with a speedy recovery, and we will get to the AGM in the summer, probably in conjunction with a social event, so watch the space on that one. And viewing and imaging. So this Saturday promises to be clear. So we'll be going over to Fairwood for 9 o'clock. I think sunset's about 9:30. It's a bit of a late one, obviously, because of the time of year. But there's a lovely 72% gibbous moon, which we'll be having a look at, and a couple of great ISS passes. So we'll find plenty to look at, I'm sure. So that's Saturday evening, okay? And then Howard would like to say something about Rob Elson there.
I'd like to, for those who weren't there last Friday night, Rob here, our place was to us on his farm in Brufton on the Gower. And I'd like to propose a vote of thanks to Rob for hosting a memorable evening. We were all there with our scopes. But unfortunately, the aurora came along and no one bothered to look through them. So once again, thank you very much for the evening. And I hope that we'll have a few more evenings in the forthcoming future.
Yeah, let's have a round of applause. Good.
Brilliant evening.
Absolutely great, yeah. And thanks for putting on the aurora, as Howard said.
Yes.
Let's do that again. It was a nice trick.
Yeah.
Okay, we also have to give a lot of thanks to Derek Francis as well for a very generous donation of this scope that you can see here. It's a Celestron C11. It's an oldie but a goodie. And Derek has very kindly given this to the Society. And we were up there the other day cleaning it up, and John has done a great job cleaning the optics, and we've done a few adjustments, and we've now, well, as of Saturday, we'll have it fully installed in the Igloo, and we'll be using the trippier and the triplet on the hard standing. So this should be a really good scope, especially for planets and things. It's got a lovely movement. So thank you, Derek, ever so much for that. Very, very generous. Okay, our next meeting is in place of the AGM, which is the 30th of May, and that will be Roger Pittock on smart scopes. So Roger was one of the people on the Eclipse trip with us, actually, and it's good to see Karen here this evening. She's a new member who was also on the same Eclipse trip as us, so great to see you here this evening, Karen. And she will know Roger, of course, and he'll be doing that talk via Zoom on smart scopes. Okay, but for now then, it's all about the eclipse hunters of April the 8th, under the moon's shadow. We were all under the moon's shadow, but did we all see it? Well, you're about to find out. Now, it was suggested that Paul sent me the shadow from Mexico, and then I sent it on to Gaynor. But ladies first, I think Gaynor wants to go first. So I shall stop the share. I'll pass it over to Gaynor now to kick us off. So over to you, Gaynor.
Right, bear with me a second. Right, okay. Good evening, everyone, and good evening, everyone online who's watching the camera through the back. Yeah, so I was one of the eclipse hunters in the society, and off I went to New York State. But spoiler alert, we most unfortunately did not see it. But I'll tell you a little bit about the events leading up to the eclipse as well. Okay. So first of all, well, where exactly was I? Okay, and you can see there a map of the United States, and New York State, of course, being over here. And we were at a place called the Finger Lakes. And if I show you a little map, I think it's really obvious to see exactly why they're called the Finger Lakes. As you can see, it's almost like, well, there's quite a lot of fingers there. It's almost like someone's taken their hand and pulled it down over the earth. So we were in this little town here, which is the town of Geneva. Oh, is someone coming in online? So the town of Geneva, that's on a really nice lake called Lake Seneca. So just to sort of orient ourselves, up to the north, you can see Lake Ontario. Okay, and if you went up across that lake, you'd end up in Canada. So it's very, very close to the Canadian border. And just off the map is Niagara Falls, just to the northwest. So it's that part of the world. Okay, so that was the plan. 2 minutes, 21 seconds. We were intending to be there in Geneva, so you can see we're not in the middle of the track, but we're on it. So we haven't got the full 4 minutes or whatever, but 2 minutes is not too bad at all. So it was all going very well. This is the day before, April the 7th. And as you can see, it's absolutely beautiful, clear blue sky. We're hanging out on the lakes there, so there's a few holiday snaps to show you. So we had high hopes for the following day that it would be the same. I think you know what's coming. Okay, but anyway, the locals were getting ready, and you can see there's a lovely poster there of the New York Total Solar Eclipse. Even some safety tips there. Check the weather forecast, wear sunscreen, make sure you've got eclipse glasses, plastered up everywhere on screens. And even along the roads, you can see on the right-hand side there were lots of these Solar Eclipse Monday. I think they thought people would be driving along and looking at it and crashing. So there were lots of warnings for many miles. Okay, so the morning, oh no, sorry, a little aside. Also on April the 7th, because of the eclipse, there's lots of astronomy going on. They'd actually opened this very old observatory called the Smith Observatory, which I understand is quite famous, but I'd never heard of it, but famous in America, perhaps. But anyway, you can see that it's world famous for the discoveries of director Dr. William R. Brooks. And you may think, oh, I've heard that word Brooks before. And he was a British observer, and he actually discovered 27 comets. So I don't think he's quite the record holder, but he's up there. And you may have heard of Pons Brooks. Anyone heard of Pons Brooks comet? Yeah, I see a few people nodding. Yeah. Yeah. It's still going, is it? Yeah. There's quite a few that I think there's more than one Pons Brooks comet actually, but possibly the subject of a talk all of its own. But anyway, so we were able to go and have a look around this very nice old observatory. So we were really in the mood for a bit of astronomy the following day. Okay, so the following day came, and here we are. So that's my friend Molly, who for the occasion had made some eclipse bread. So you can see that she's attempting to get the shadow onto the bread. So that was a nice bit of fun. But unfortunately, as you can see, the clouds are starting to come in. This is about 11 a.m. But nevertheless, we're still trying to have a look with our eclipse glasses there. But unfortunately, it just got worse from there, to be honest. So here we are. we did have a couple of breaks in the cloud. So there we've got around about 70%. So it was already starting to get a little bit shady at that point. And then at the bottom there, just before totality, we did have a little break. And it must have been around about 98% at that point. Okay, but nevertheless, you can see how thick the clouds are. But a point of interest, that there were some chickens free ranging around us as we were lying on the ground there. So that was a bit of an odd experience, lying down and chickens passing your head. But unfortunately, it was cloudy, but nevertheless, that's what we saw. And if you've ever been in an eclipse, you may have looked around and seen this sort of 360-degree sunset, which is a bit odd, because you usually expect sunset in one part of the sky and suddenly it's all around you. So yeah, that's what we had to look at least. So you can see what it was like. And there's me with some friends here. We've been friends since the 90s, actually. So we met up for the eclipse in the US. Now I can hear you saying, well, what happened to the chickens during totality? Well, unfortunately, I didn't take a photo. It was only 2 minutes or so. I forgot to take a photo, but actually what happened was the chickens basically ran together and huddled under the tree, right? So if anyone was curious about what chickens do during totality, that's what they do. Okay, so we were disappointed, but at least we were among friends and we still had a good time. Now, there's actually been an eclipse in Geneva before. It was in January 1925, but the history books tell us that was also clouded out. So perhaps not a lucky spot. And well, what can I say? Geneva residents can try again in 2144. It's a long time to wait. Thank you.
Thanks, Dana.
Very good. Well, I'm sorry you didn't see the eclipse, but you were under the shadow. So there you go. All right. Well, Paul, would you like to go next?
Yep, and
Okay.
fire it up. Right, now then, here we go then. Eclipses are very good excuses to plan a long 2-week holiday, usually in a place where nobody goes. So don't go to Benidorm and save your money and chase the shadow. Now this picture, this main picture, is actually the 2019 eclipse down in Chile. Because as you'll see through this presentation, I had a bit of a disaster on some of this equipment. So we went all the way down to Mexico and Mexico City. So the flight to, we went to Canada, changed the plane, and then down to Mexico City. 2,052 miles, and 14 and a half hours. It's a very long day. It's the third largest city on Earth, 22.5 million people, and it's spread over 1,525 kilometers and 2,200 kilometers up in the air as well on a plateau. So the whole week we were there, we actually had nosebleeds all the time. It was a bit rough that way. Got down to Mexico. In Mexico, we found these meteorites in a display at the Museum of the Institute of Geology. And now this was a real old building. I mean, the floorboards were creaking and the ceilings were actually falling down. So it was brilliant. And there are some beautiful big iron meteorites in there. But they were not the best ones. We had these very large ones outside in the Palace of Mining, of all places. And these are some massive meteorites. The first one is Jimenez, and it's 8,767 kilograms in weight. And you got El Morito, 10,100 kilograms. And then we got Zacatecas, That's 780 kilograms. That was found in 1792. And then we got the Chapaderos, which is 14,114 kilograms, found in 1852. They're all welded to posts outside this place. We're just walking down the street and just come across them. And I'm like, you know, oh, meteorites. Couldn't believe it. So this is an idea of the size of them. I don't think anybody would be walking away with those ones. Yeah, they were big. So after that, we went to this temple. We had to go and see the pyramids of the sun, which is the largest in Mesoamerica and the second largest after the Great Pyramid at Giza. But it's only half the height. I don't think they had the scaffolding in those days. And this is the Avenue of the Dead. And that leads, it's a very long avenue with lots of little pyramids each side of it, ceremonial stuff. And that led to the Pyramid of the Moon. Now, as you can see by the weather, we had blue skies literally every day of this trip to Mexico. I mean, every day except Eclipse Day, of course. So that's get used to it. There's a few of these. Yeah, that's the name of the place. Even I can't pronounce it properly. Teotihuacan. It was, yeah, it's a fantastic place. It's Mexico's biggest ancient city, and it's the Mayan capital of the country's largest pre-Hispanic empire. So after seeing that and a few other oddities in Mexico City, and yeah, it is a place I don't think I'd like to go back to unless I had to. It was a bit of an experience. And then we went to Torreon, made our way up there after another hour and 40 minutes and 528 miles. But anyway, Torrance is an industrial city of nearly 1 million people, known for manufacturing cotton and denim and agricultural services. They also produce a lot of cattle and milk, and it is not a tourist destination. There are very few tourists there. In fact, the population's mostly Native American, about 60–70% of them. Now, this is the path of the shadow. Goes a little bit north of Torreon. And we're going to go down a little bit down to the south and the west of Torreon, down where it passes the Nazis River at this little place. And that's the details of the eclipse on there. And it's also pointing right at where we were. Of course, we had streaming clouds coming in from the Pacific, so that's why we decided to go west. And we got there next to the Nazis River, which on this satellite view is a little bit dried up. Of course, this is the road to get there. Very long, windy, out in the desert. It was stunning scenery, a bit brown though. When we got there, we found the river, which was in full flow. It was very unexpected and pleasing. So I set up in the village, and as usual, I set up on top of an ant's nest. But some pepperami slices kept them happy. The ant's nest is practically that little fuzzy patch. I don't know if you can see the mouse, just about here somewhere. Yeah. But of course, they're all over the place. And they're very big too. So first contact was at 16:57:57. Of course, everything's in universal time. So after the excitement of first contact, come the excitement of discovering a few of the effects of the increasing darkness. The first, of course, was funny shadows, like weird shadows everywhere. Especially when the trees are moving. It looked like you're running down the street at night, you know, the LEDs giving all sorts of different effects in the shadows. So second contact's at 18:14:33. I'm going to let this play because of the sound.
Here we go.
This is my friend Brenda. I'm sorry about the video's a bit glitchy because I'm playing this split screen on a big TV, so the resources of this computer is not too good. And we were actually waiting for shadow bands, so it's starting to get dark at this point. The sound in there were the cockerels, chickens. They're all crowing and complaining.
Yeah, we can't hear the sound.
Now this, as you can see on the right-hand side, the shadows coming in. And everybody goes, ooh. Now they're all shouting at the dogs. Of course, I was hoping to get shadow bands at this point, but the cameras wouldn't keep up with it. Yeah, the dogs were barking because of the eclipse. And of course, this was another video. Now on the right, of course, we've got Venus. And totally. And of course, we had a lot of streaming clouds. So I did try to process some of these pictures and get more detail out of it. But because of the brightness and the movement of the clouds, it just fogged everything out. So it was better for me to just leave the pictures as they are. I couldn't really get anything better out of the data I had. This was taken with a big scope. It's just a sample of the failure. But the 5 o'clock position, there's a really bright prominence, a really bright patch. And it just got brighter and brighter. And it actually caused it, well, in my eye, a light spike across the center of the moon, which was really bright. And I thought it was a Bailey's beads, but I thought, well, this is lasting too long. So it's definitely something different. And then it struck me, it must be a really bright prominence or something. And it was exceptionally bright. I've never seen anything like it on all the eclipses I've been to. So this was my wide field setup. The little camera next to the big telescope. It's got a 24 to 105 zoom lens on it, set at 24 millimeters. So I've got Venus in the bottom right corner, but I've also got Jupiter 2/3 up on the left side, just inside the frame. And somewhere between the Sun and Jupiter, there should be a comet somewhere here somewhere. But of course, South P Ponsbrook, forget it with all this cloud. Now this is a 1/4 second exposure, same field of view, still got Venus, still got Jupiter up here. But of course, it's now showing more of the actual eclipse. So this is my best eclipse picture that I actually got, apart from the video. But we did get a selfie because we did have 5 minutes to play. Yeah, I said to Dot, I said, we got to practice this, and we practiced it the night before. And I said, all right, when I shout, you come over because you won't have much time. But we definitely did. And so totality ends at 18, 16 and 47 seconds. As you can see, the scope is pointing almost straight up. So I'd spent all this time staring at the eclipse and enjoying it and hoping the camera and the computer were doing their stuff. And they did, all except I had a loss of data when all this weight, I had a reducer on it, you see, and the cameras, and it just slipped slightly as I was messing up. You know, when you turn them on and off, it just slipped slightly, and there's no way I could check it because I was using set and see. So I wasn't actually getting a live view on the computer. I was getting a live view on the back screen, and it did look really good. But, you know, these little screens are so tiny. If it's slightly out of focus, you've had it. So, and later on at the accommodation, we went through the data, and our hearts just dropped. The elation just crashed down. I just said to daughter, I said, that's it, it's done. Total waste of time with that telescope and that camera. That was it, gone. So forget that. So I hope you did better out there, Chris. So we move on. The shadow carried on. The clouds at third contact ending the totality at 1819 and 1 seconds. The presence of the clouds allowed us to see the shadow move across the sky. So it did have their uses. Now, as it clears, you'll see those. Yeah, they really brightened up really quick. I mean, there were thin enough clouds, and to show the actual sort of edge of the moon as it disappears that way was really fantastic. Now, we did have 2 planes chasing it. Now, they must have been chasing it because they were going straight after that shadow. I don't know who they were, but they were obviously having more fun than we were. Definitely a longer eclipse. And I bet they got some better pictures as well. Now, one of the other effects, other than shadow bands, is colours. Not a lot of people really think about this, but the effect of the change in light is that the colours with the longer wavelengths, like the red, they look darker than the blues and the greens, and they allow the blues and greens to stand out. And of course, the cameras don't really capture it, but at the time, yeah, it was really, really vivid. Now I'm going to play this, the last video, the end of the totality of the shadow on its way towards Torian. We'd stopped off in this village and met all these people. They didn't even know this eclipse was happening until we turned up, and they came out wondering what we were doing. And of course, we explained it as best we could via Google. And they came out, and the hospitality from the locals was absolutely fantastic. And it enabled us to show them the eclipse with glasses. They borrowed our glasses, our binoculars, and they were so grateful. And it made their day, really. So yeah, everybody's really happy. We had a really good day, and the shadow's on its way to Torian at this point, and it's going at 1,564 miles an hour. And so the excitement of first contact and discovering all the effects happening around us, and the exhilaration when the diamond ring forms, of course, the shock of the sun exploding after third contact and calls of wow. And the loss and sadness when the moon finally clears the sun and it's all over, basically, for most people. All right, so that's that then. Time to plan the next holiday, I think, be 2026, probably Spain, because I don't want to be clouded out in Iceland or smoked out if there's an option. So who saw it next? Because I hope it's clear, because the shadow's on its way to you. That's me done. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks very much indeed. That's a very good account. Well, you saw it.
We saw it.
And you were under the shadow. So well done. Okay, very entertaining. Okay, so I guess it's over to us now. And then we have Maggie here. I don't know if you want to come up, Maggie, or you want to stay there or whatever. Oh, there we are. There we are. Gaynor will give you her microphone.
Standing up and sitting down is not one of
There we
my
are.
greatest skills.
But we can hear you now. So whatever you say, everyone will hear you, okay? Okay, so we're in the middle now then. So we've had the shadow in New York, we had the shadow in Mexico, and now we've got the shadow in Texas. So a very unconventional eclipse movement in terms of path, but here we go. Right, so basically, as you know, we flew from London Heathrow over to America for this wonderful eclipse, which was a long time waiting, really, because we'd missed a couple due to COVID that were down in the Southern Hemisphere. And, you know, this was the last one after 2017, so it's been a little while. But anyway, I was going to photograph the eclipse, and I had a new camera, and everything basically had to fit in this camera case, everything, and it did. and it came to about 11.4 kilograms. And it managed to go in the overhead locker. So that was lucky, wasn't it? And we were off to America, to Texas, and we were joining a group of Amiga eclipse enthusiasts led by Pete Lawrence from the Sky at Night. And as you can see, we did quite a bit of traveling in Texas, starting at Houston, and as you can see, they're going all over the place and ending up at Waxahachie, as you can see with my t-shirt and the Texan hat for the eclipse. So that's where we would be for the eclipse, the Hampton Inn and Suites at Waxahachie. It's actually pronounced Waxahachie in the Indian way of talking, rather than as it's written. So that's how it's pronounced, really. But that's where we would be. And as you can see there, the center there. So not quite as much as down there, but pretty good. And I'd done a fair bit of sort of practice beforehand. You might have seen some of the images online, because this was a new camera, so I had to learn its idiosyncrasies. It's a very light camera, actually, so it served me well. So one of the things that Paul mentioned was he had difficulty seeing the LCD screen. So you can buy these little shades from eBay for about £4. But a better one is this, which magnifies it by 3 times. So you have like an eye cup that just fits over the LCD screen, but it's quite a weight. So you have to Velcro it to the camera rather than rip the LCD screen off, which would be a disaster. But that worked really well. And I was operating via Bluetooth remote controls. And I was using a little MSM, move, shoot, move tracker, and a little Z mount on the day, which Alan Wallace invented, actually, the late Alan Wallace. And I dedicate all these photos to him, actually. Great loss to astrophotography. So I'd done my test exposures on the sun and the moon. The moon is about the same brightness as the sun's corona, so it's good to practice on a full moon if you can. And I had a range of exposures, so I knew roughly where to be. And as well as the main camera, had the iPhone with a gimbal and a couple of little cameras as well. Action cams and a bike camera. So anyway, we flew over Swansea actually on the way out from Heathrow, and we landed at Houston, and before long we were at Mission Control. And it was great to look around the Johnson Space Center there, and very commercialized part that visitors get access to, of course. And it was Easter time, so a lot of the places where we could go were booked up. So we didn't make the most of it, really. So my advice is don't go at Easter time. But amazing to get up close and personal to these, solid rocket boosters from SpaceX and all the rest of it, and meet a real astronaut. So there's Brian Duffy. And of course, we have a space shuttle on top of a jumbo jet to have a look around. That was amazing. And we found out lots about the Artemis mission, of course. So really nice to look around there. And Brian was really entertaining, actually, did us great. You've also got Apollo in there and a lot of the LEMs and things like that. And a really, really good place to go. And as you can see, Brian there showing the crew, and he had his humorous side as well. So a different sort of a photo that I think you won't see normally. Great sense of humor with these guys. So that was good to see. Anyway, Pete Lawrence did lots of presentations about eclipses, how to photograph them, and how to do astrophotography in general, which is all very interesting. I think a lot of the people knew about this, but obviously he has to cover that for the group. So I managed to film quite a bit of his talks, which might come in handy for future meetings, actually. If people want to know more, I can certainly pass those on. Now, featuring throughout the whole holiday was this horrendous issue of the weather. Wherever we went, from when we flew out until Eclipse Day, it was doom and gloom, really, with will we see it, won't we see it, and what's going to happen, the wind's changing. And basically, it was looking like a disaster, and then the worst place we could possibly be was Texas. And it was a case of, oh no, what have we done? but Mexico didn't look any better. But ironically, Maine and the area out towards Canada seemed to have the best weather. And who'd have thought that? But everyone had gone to Mexico and Texas, of course, and last minute they were changing their plans and going into Arkansas and places like that, which had better weather prospects. But anyway, we had a good little look around. I don't know if Maggie wants to say anything at this point, but you can see her there at the Alamo. Yeah,
Yes,
so
it was great. And the Alamo is actually in San Antonio. It was originally the mission San Antonio, so it was a mission from the Franciscans. But then the church became the place where the pro Texas becoming part of the US group were holed up. And you've probably all seen the John Wayne film anyway, so the story of the Alamo is famous enough. And so there's me standing there, statues of Davy Crockett, and all the general story of the Alamo. But the trip was interesting, I think, just to see all these different things and these different places. San Antonio is a lovely city. If you go to somewhere in Texas, the place I think I would head for is San Antonio. It's got a lovely river. We had a trip on a boat up and down the river, and nice sort of eating places along the riverside. So that was one of the highlights.
there you go. And regarding the weather, it was a case of liberty or death, wasn't it, that we found out there? So yeah, we had a good look around. Austin, you want to say anything about this one?
Austin, I didn't go much on. All right, it's the state capital, but to be honest, I thought it was rather an uninteresting city. It's very American, very dull, to be honest. There were some good food trucks to get a meal at, but that was about it. And we did go up to what they called Mount Bonner, was it?
Yeah.
And it wasn't a mountain; it was just a sort of hill overlooking a lake. Their idea of a mountain isn't quite the same as ours.
Okay, and do go ahead, Wendy, if you want to pitch in and say anything about where we've been, okay? You can see Wendy there. Right, more of this. So, whilst we were in Austin, we put the telly on, and goodness me, hailstones the size of baseballs. Can you believe it? Well, there they are. And these were hailing down literally on cars and smashing windscreens, and you had to dodge these things, otherwise they'd take you out. Unbelievably bad weather we had there. And then in the middle of the night, the television turned on with a klaxon, full volume, 100% volume, scared the living daylights out of us. Emergency alert system telling us about thunderstorms and what have you. Of course, they have the tornado warning system out there, so these are needed. But we had no no warning that this was going to happen, and it really scared us to death. Right, well, we had a system for the weather known as Buc-ee's. Now, Buc-ee's is a very nice superstore out there where you can buy practically anything. And Pete Lawrence basically coined the Buc-ee scale, 0 to 10, with 10 being the best weather and 0 being you won't see it. So every presentation, he'd tell us what Buc-ee level we were on. And we started off with a 1 to a 2 Buc-ee's. So as you can see, out of 10, 1 out of 10 is not very good, is it? So this wasn't looking too good at this stage. But anyway, Pete gave us some great presentations, as I say, and particularly on eclipse photography and photography in general. And I can show you those later. So you can see one of our newest members there, Karen, in the background, enjoying a little drinky. We were enjoying days out in Austin there and seeing the sights. So yes, more on the weather. The chance of clouds during the eclipse got worse and worse. And we were taught all about eclipses and stuff like that. But we went up the Buc-ee scale. So we were on Buc-ee scale 5 now at this point. So, that was 50-50. So wasn't too bad. So things were looking better. Now, April the 1st passed, and we had a few giggles at this one. Who needs clouds? There's no problem. Just get an X-ray eyepiece and you can see the eclipse, of course. So that was April the 1st. And well, there was quite a lot of light pollution around the hotels, but we did do some limited viewing from there. But as you can see, it's terrible glare there. So you can see a group of us there, and you might see this little thing here, which is a smart scope. and that's Roger who'll be giving the talk. And you can see Pete Lawrence there. I think I got another slide. Yes, there we are. So, so the little sea star was very popular, and Roger was able to get a few objects with that. And this is Pete Lawrence's rig here, which is a 66 Apo and a Star Adventurer mount, I believe. So that's what he was using as his primary scope and instrument. And do you want to say anything about this, Maggie?
Yes, we went to this strange place, the Paint Rocks they were called. It's sort of out in the back of nowhere, but this guy had bought this, what was going to be a ranch, although it didn't look very good ranching territory, and then discovered on the rocks around it, there were all these markings made by the early inhabitants of Texas. So possibly the Comanches or the people before the Comanches, or people from whom they presumably the Comanches or the local Indian tribe were descended. But they had all these markings which supposedly were symbolic of all sorts of things, you know, the sun, the moon, the people attacking other people, lying down, dying, and so on. And the old chap down in the picture on the bottom side of the screen, who is with the hat on, he was a real character. He owned this site, and he kept talking about how his family had come there and they'd settled and they found this. And it was obviously a nice commercial opportunity for him, but it was something very different to see. Made a change from most of the Texan landscape, and you know, no oil wells, no rich Americans in their big cars or anything, which is typical of most of Texas.
Yes, and I think Roger Davis would have got on very well with this chap. He was talking all about the equinoxes and the various marks and things. But interestingly, in this slide, you can see this one here, which is a close-up of that. Anybody recognize what that might be? Constellation-wise? Cassiopeia, yeah? Yeah. And there's the supernova way back when in ancient history that was recorded, which was as bright as the day. And Pete Lawrence was shown that, and you can see them pointing to it there. That's where it is. So close-ups there. So that was very interesting. And then we went on to the McDonald Observatory at the University of Texas at Austin. And that was an interesting trip out. We traveled for a couple of days to get to this site, which was up in the hills, of course. So we passed through all the Texan oil fields. And we eventually got to McDonald Observatory. Do you want to say something about that, Maggie?
Yes, it was up one of the few actual real mountains in Texas. The observatory, there's the main McDonald scope, and there's also the Hobbs-Eberly telescope, which is doing a lot of current work. But unfortunately, we weren't actually able to get into the sort of inside of the scopes. We could walk around the outside and into the base of where the telescopes were, but we weren't actually given a tour right the way inside, which was a great shame. Although we did have a presentation down in the exhibition centre, but it was mainly that was focused on solar observing. They had a very good solar telescope set up and so on, but it was a bit geared at people who didn't know much about astronomy and the sun, and so I think for most of us it was a bit of sort of, oh my goodness, we know all this anyway, you know, and please let us go in and have a good look round the telescopes, and but they weren't willing. It's a professional observatory, and they obviously were not too happy with gangs of tourists going round. So that was a bit of a disappointment, but nonetheless, there we were. We saw the observatory, and we were there.
Yes, we were. So you can see a few of the other domes there, and you know, that's about as much as we got to see through the windows there inside of the scopes. It was interesting, but you know, other parties on bigger buses than ours were shown inside, and we weren't. So
we were told that the party that got inside were a group from they were alumni of Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
Yes, MIT.
So they obviously had the right contacts with the professional astronomers.
Yeah, we should have told them we were with the SAS, shouldn't we?
Yes, we should have. Yeah.
But anyway, there was McDonald's anyway, and you can see fantastic size on those. But we wanted to see what was in it, which of course was big telescopes like this, 84-inch, this one.
Mm.
And ironically, if you were just to turn up, you could book 2 hours to use that telescope at night. And the other thing we didn't do is spend any time under dark skies, even though we traveled 2 days to be there, which was a big disappointment, I think. But as Maggie said, we had a live solar demonstration, and it was good to see the well, what could be our famous solar prominence that Paul showed us just now, or something that looks like it, that particular shape. But it wasn't that one. I'm sure it was another one. But it was good to see there was some activity on the sun. So a bit of a busman's holiday for me. I used to work in the oil industry, and it was interesting, I suppose, to see these.
Thousands of
Mile
them.
upon mile upon mile of them. Yeah. Okay, and back to the weather again. Well, it wasn't getting any better at this point. As you can see, look at this eclipse path. Who'd have thought that there would be weather mostly across most of America, with just a little bit of Canada that wasn't in the cloud? So anyway, there you go. So this was a bit of a diversion. So Paul's meteorites, well, we had some as well at Odessa meteor crater, so not to be confused with the other meteor crater in Arizona, of course. But this is what our driver actually knew about, and diverted us to here. So it was interesting to look around that, and they had a bit of a garden going on, a solar garden, as you can see. And then it was on to Fort Worth with a little bit of a yeehaw going on in the street there at the stockyards in Texas. You've got to kind of do that thing, haven't you, I suppose? So we did a bit of that. And we went on to the Stampede as well, didn't we? And that was very interesting. So you can see Maggie there and Wendy. And this is Roger and June. So Roger will be doing the presentation, as I say. So that was kind of interesting, wasn't it? You want to say any about that?
Yeah,
Maggie?
it was interesting. One of the funny things, the picture there is the rodeo, and we saw this rodeo, and these chaps on horses, cowboy types, were lassoing some poor little calves, and these little calves were let out, and then they tried to run across, and these cowboys would chase them on horses and try and get a lasso around the neck of the poor animal and drag it to the ground, and then tie it up. And all the Americans, every time they managed to catch one of these calves, would go, yeah, you know, big cheers. Us little group of Brits were all going, ooh,
Yeah.
and cheered every time one of the calves got away. You know, we thought that was a victory. So we were the animal lovers there, and not
Sure.
part of the natural Texas personalities, should we say?
Yeah, I think the best bit was when the kids were let loose on the little bulls.
Oh yes, the kiddies were all chasing these poor little calves,
Yeah.
and the smaller kids were chasing some little sheep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bizarre.
So anyway, there you go. That was that. And we finally arrived at our hotel where we would see the eclipse, or hope to see the eclipse from. So we were there the night before. And then the following day, we went into Dallas itself. So this was the location we were seeing the eclipse was south of Dallas. And we went to the JFK Museum, which I didn't think I'd like, but I was absolutely fascinated by it. So, you know, we went up to the various places where JFK could have been shot, Grassy Mound, and up to the 6th, 7th floor as well. And it was very interesting. There was nothing held back, really. You know, you had frames of the cine cameras blown up on big TV screens, and all the gory detail that we heard about, and all the conspiracy theories as well about the 3 hobos who were supposed to have done it from the Grassy Mound, and whether he was shot backwards in the chair, in the car, and all the rest of it, and how they might have interfered with him in the hospital with the autopsy, you know, to make it look like he was shot from the back and not the front. So all this sort of stuff was kind of interesting. And what I thought was quite macabre was the, I don't know if you can see it there, the crosses are still there on the road where the shots were supposedly fired there from that building.
Yes, what they've done is they've changed that. That was the bookstore depository for those of us who are old enough to remember the Kennedy assassination, and the assassin was up on the 6th floor. And they've now turned the 6th floor into a total sort of monument to JFK, with exhibitions of all his career through as president. Very well done, I thought. Although the chap who was showing us around talking about all the conspiracy theories, I thought was a bit crazy. He said at one point, you know, it was very suspicious, these 3 hobos making their way off the grassy knoll just after he was shot. And I thought, well, they're probably bloody pickpockets, you know. You've got a big crowd of people standing there wanting to watch the president. All of a sudden, there's this shooting. Every policeman in range is going to be hanging on to that place. And I would guess the last thing these people wanted to be found with were various people's wallets and other things that they'd managed to nick. But that's my theory, and I think it's more believable. And I reckon Lee Harvey Oswald done it, and he was a marksman anyway, a good marksman, and just totally unreliable according to the records of the KGB, which were later released. You know, because they did think of recruiting him. He spent some time in Moscow and married a Russian lady. But when he came, they thought of recruiting him when he came back. But when they opened the archives later, you know, they dismissed him as being totally unstable and not somebody they wanted anything to do with. So I think that theory that it was the Russians what done it went out the window. And I had a bit of an argy-bargy with the conspiracy theory tour guide, I must say. You know, he seemed to be uninformed on some of the later information that was available. You know, he didn't know. He thought the Russians had in for Kennedy because of the Cuban crisis. You know, he'd done them in. And you had to say, hang on a minute, you know, we looked at it later. There was a deal. The deal was, you know, the Americans pulled back out of their bases in Turkey. And that was what persuaded Khrushchev, in order to persuade Khrushchev to back off from Cuba. And, you know, none of that seemed to be known to this chap. So, yes, it was, I enjoyed going to see the site because I remember, I'm old enough to remember Kennedy's assassination and all that. It was sort of a big event. I remember where I was and all that. So that was to me a very interesting day in Dallas. But
Yeah.
on to the eclipse.
Yeah, before I do leave that, this photo on the left here is taken from the 7th floor, which I wasn't supposed to go up to, but I did. So I've probably got the only photograph of that you're supposed to have. The view from the 6th floor is very dusty and grimy and not clear at all, but you can get a good view from that. Anyway, we shall move on. So how many buckies are we at now? 7 buckies, and the eclipse is kind of the next day. So victory or death indeed at the Alamo. It looked like it would be one or the other, didn't it? So things were looking a bit better. We had a 70% chance of seeing the eclipse. But we had a debate whether we should drive overnight. The driver wanted to drive to Arkansas, which had near perfect conditions. It would take 5 hours under normal circumstance, but because of the volume of traffic, it would take probably more like 7 to 10. And of course, we had a plane to catch the next day. So it wasn't really feasible to do that. So we stayed put, basically.
That was Plan B, which was better known as Plan Bananas.
Plan Bananas, yes. But anyway, Eclipse Day came along. And suddenly we were outside in the lovely area with the camera set up. And as you can see, my bespoke box of rocks to keep the monopod that you can see here securely to the floor for the other cameras, and a little carbon fiber tripod with the MSN with that particular vlogging camera is what I used. And I had all this plan for doing it, so I sort of tried to use some of the memories and what have you when things would happen. But of course, what I didn't plan for was the weather. So this was the morning of the eclipse, which looked reasonable. You know, we got up, well, I did, got up early. You can see the lovely blue bonnets there. But then suddenly this cloud comes into view. And more of this cloud came from a direction that normally it doesn't come from in Texas. And when I went back out again, it looked a very different story indeed. So this was the situation then in the morning. So we had a leaden sky, but some breaks there in the cloud, as you can see. And the sun poking through gave us a little bit of optimism that we might see something. But at this point, people were a little bit despondent. So you can see us all set up there in the grounds of the hotel. They'd cut the grass for us, and everyone had chairs, which was good. We had a few people come in from outside who nabbed some chairs and joined us, but there we are. And that's where we were, on the corner there of the concrete. So it was soon time for the eclipse to begin, and it looked good. So we had a break in the clouds, and we saw the sun. So this allowed me to at least get focus. So that was that we found a couple of spots on the sun, so I was able to get focus. And well, we headed for first contact, and there it was through clouds. So the eclipse glasses came on, and we saw the first nibble under clouds coming out of the sun there as the moon started its journey. But more and more clouds came across, and sometimes it was difficult to see the sun, and it would disappear then. So this is the real-time footage taken through that vlogging camera, as you can see us waiting for those clouds to pass for the duration of the eclipse. And well, sometimes it was okay, and you could get a lovely view through the eclipse glasses as the moon made its way across the sun. Again, the live view through the vlogging camera, as you can see the clouds passing and kind of okay, and then, oh dear, what's happening, you know? So the sun has disappeared. There was a bit of that, you know, we didn't really know, even at this point, whether we would see the eclipse. And we had some good views now and again. So there's Wendy using her solar viewer, which is a very nice glass filter that she prefers to use, and gets a nice view there through that. And things were looking good. We were getting more breaks in the clouds, and this is well into the eclipse now, standing up, and this is getting really panicky now. You can see the clouds behind, and we're closing down towards the eclipse, which is in 10 minutes time from now. And this was the last shot I took with the filter on, and it's time to take the filter off. So off comes the filter, and the eclipse goes into the clouds. So there you go. But what happened then, this is 2 minutes now. You can see the planet Venus there. This is taken with a handy cam. And you can see how the halo is formed around the sun by the clouds. The clouds acted as a filter. And at this point, I really couldn't believe what I was seeing through the camera, because to me, it looked like the eclipse was on. So that's the view I got after I took the filter off, with 2 minutes, 2 minutes to go to totality. Now, normally this would burn a camera out, 2 minutes looking at the sun, but the sun was filtered by clouds. So look at that. I didn't know which way to look, whether to put glasses on, glasses off, what button to press. This was a bit of a surprise, but look, there's a diamond ring, and this is 2 minutes still before totality, and more clouds come across the face of the sun. The sun is closing down now. The diamond ring is getting smaller, and yet I'm taking photo after photo, and I can see prominences. I can see the start of the corona appearing all through clouds. And this extended the eclipse for me by 2 minutes. This is a live view of the Handycam view on that little tripod. You can see Venus and the eclipse. This is how dark it got, not particularly dark, but obviously the camera amplifies it a little bit, but you get that 360-degree sunset that Gaynor talked about all the way around, of course. So you can see everyone looking up there at the main event. And again, still through clouds. Now, the eclipse is about to start. So look at these prominences starting to emerge here, and the start of chromosphere as well, the pinkiness. It's a lovely diamond ring, but again, through clouds, not a clear view at all. Closing down, this is almost now at the point of totality starting for 4 minutes and 17 seconds. Not quite, there's still a little bit of photosphere there. You can see these prominences here now starting, and the chromosphere getting bigger. So this is the panic. I didn't know what to do. This is the bike camera view of me doing all the photographing and using the binoculars and looking around, trying to take it all in, but also pressing that remote control and making sure that everything was working as well, but also trying to enjoy the eclipse and waving all sorts of cameras in the air, etc. And there the eclipse is over. That's the third contact there where the photosphere returns, and I put the filter back on. So here's a few time-lapse from those images through clouds. So these are 53 images of 3,000ths of a second, 2 minutes prior to totality. So this is what my camera was getting. And to me, you know, I was saying, diamond ring. And people were looking at me stupid. You know, it's 2 minutes to the eclipse, not diamond ring yet. I'm seeing the diamond ring in my camera. And I was seeing the pink chromosphere and the prominences. And yet it was all through clouds. So 3,000th of a second. So this is 1500th of a second now, 1 minute away from totality. Again, the clouds passing over the sun, a little bit less of a diamond ring there now, heading down towards totality. And if I move on, this is a 500th of a second as C2 starts. So the moon now, the last bits of the sunlight coming through the valleys of the moon, the Bailey's beads, and you can see that pink chromosphere now as the moon just covers the sun. So those were 7 exposures at 500th of a second. And there's a close-up view of those, as you can see it closing down. Isn't that incredible to see the prominences all the way over here at the top, down here, and you can see this very faint loop here, very, very big loop, and the pinkiness of the chromosphere. This is all just through a vlogging camera. It's amazing, isn't it? Again, the view from the little handy cam there on that monopod, with a nice view through that cloud of the corona and Venus there. And I put the iPhone down on the floor on the gimbal. You saw me waving it in the air just a minute ago, and this picked up the lovely flowers and the orange sunset on the horizon there as everyone was fixed looking at things. So more of totality then. So let's have a look at a few of the photographs. So these are some of the ones that I thought were the nicest, really, through clouds and then closing down. And then I thought this was a rather nice one of the chromosphere, the most pinky that I got at C2. And then I started increasing the exposure, opening the camera to get more of the corona in. And I managed to go as far as 4 seconds to get Earthshine. So now you can see the moon properly, and some of the prominences still sticking out, and the corona there extending. And you can see stars now. So this is a double star in Pisces, and another one down there. And I had lots of stars actually in my longer exposures. We were under the moon's shadow at this point, and it was good to be back under the shadow. Wonderful to be there. I tried compositing the photos together of the various different shutter speeds, and I'm still learning how to do this properly, but this is a crude attempt with a longer exposure to give the Earth shine, and then a shorter exposure to show the prominences towards third contact. And you can see the double stars there in Pisces, and the single star came out okay. And then going the other way, so trying to then reduce the exposure because we're coming up to the next diamond ring. And I managed to get the Bailey's beads at the point of third contact. But look at this fantastic prominence. Yeah. This is what everyone was seeing with the naked eye, you know? And this one here and the one up here, but the 3 Bailey's beads there soon became 4. And then, of course, everyone says, oh, it's over. You know, you get the intense burst of the photosphere coming back, and it's all over, really. And, well, you know, you carry on photographing, you want it to carry on, but of course, it's headed in one direction. But how lucky were we? I mean, these are the satellite images of the cloud passing over Mexico and America and into New York and Canada. Sadly, you know, Dana didn't get it. Some of us got it through cloud, and some of us got it through cloud and clear. So we did all right in Texas, I think. So staying was the right answer. So some more time lapse here, this time of third contact as the photosphere emerges, and you can see the Bailey's beads there. So this is 5 1/2000th of a second captured through the vlogging camera. And the same thing at 3000th. So I was bracketing, yeah, with the remote control. I set the camera to bracket, and it seemed to come out and work okay. And then inevitably you have to put your filter back on, and it's boring then, isn't it? You know, I mean, if you saw this eclipse in Swansea, 99%, you think, wow, this is fantastic. You think, oh, no, I can't be bothered with this now, you know, let's go home now. A lot of people leave at this point, but of course, we wanted to carry on. But the jubilation starts then, you know, people are happy. You can see the smiley faces on Pete Lawrence there, Maggie, Wendy, myself. Pete Truman is the other Peter down here as we party then, of course, as the moon passes and makes its way across the face of the sun. And we're back to normality there. You can see the sunspot coming back. Clouds came back towards the end. I didn't get fourth contact. That was the last shot I got of partial eclipse. And then the clouds parted and I got the normal sun that you would see. So I failed to get fourth contact. But a selection there of photos we were happy with. And you can see Maggie is jubilant, enjoying herself there as we celebrated our good fortune. Interestingly, the Fitbit that I wear shows the predicament I was in at the point of prior to totality and totality itself. So I peaked a little bit of heartbeat there. Didn't know quite what was going on. So that was interesting. Yeah, yeah. So a few more photos then to bore you with. Through clouds, I thought this was rather moody, and I wasn't sure if there wasn't shadow bands on the clouds. Because of the clouds, the shadow bands didn't get down to the ground. Nobody saw shadow bands, or at least I think one person said they did. But I think this photo does show shadow bands, but on the top of the clouds, looking from the bottom up. So that was kind of interesting. And I was happy, as I say, with this one, that second contact there with the chromosphere and the proms. And then I was really happy to get the first time I've ever managed to get Earthshine in an image. So that was good. And in terms of stars, well, you know, Zeta Piscis is the double star, and then 85 Pisces close in. But I had many other stars. So there's a couple of dozen stars that came out in my 1 to 4 second images. So I was very pleased to get stars as well as Earthshine. But this for me was, you know, the eclipse, to see that prominence, that fantastic red prominence at the bottom and on the side, and a little bit of the corona. And then those Bailey's beads, you know, we were expecting a double diamond ring because we were off the center line a bit, which is why the site was chosen in the first place. And we got that, a little bit of a double diamond ring, but it actually became a triple in the end. So I was really chuffed with that. So there you go. So we did actually do quite well, I think, and the clouds made it even better, extended the eclipse, I think, for me anyway. So the 4 minutes, 17 seconds became 6 minutes, 17 seconds, which was amazing.
What was
So after
incredible
that, we
as well
had
was the way the clouds sort of disappeared at totality, you know, with this sort of cloud drifting around, and all of a sudden, just no cloud at all around. You know, the sun, you could see Venus and Jupiter and the prominences and stars, and so, you know, it was incredible for 4 minutes.
It was, yeah, absolutely. So we had a debrief the next day, and we had Paul Abel and John Colshaw join us, and you can well imagine what happened. I think you may have seen some of the WhatsApp videos. I won't play it now because time is cracking on. But Pete Lawrence gave a presentation, and if you want to see the full video, it's work in progress at the moment. I'm plodding on with it, and it's nearly ready. But after that, it was flying home, really. And the first person we saw, welcome to Heathrow, was Tim Peake. And 4 days later, we were on Tim Peake's ship, sailing down to the Canaries with him. So that was kind of interesting. Anyway, for those who haven't seen an eclipse, we have some coming up. Now, annulars are a little bit different. They're interesting. They're nice to see the ring of fire, but very disappointing that you don't see the corona. You have to use protection. But there's one coming up this year, 2nd of October. So you can see you have to go there to see it, which is far away. And then we have another annular, February the 17th. Again, it's down Africa way and down towards the South Pole, so not so good. But this is an interesting one. So the 12th of August 2026, coming down from Greenland, passing to the west of Iceland, and then missing us a little bit. So we'll get a very decent eclipse from here, but of course you have to see totality really to make your hairs stand on end. And for that, you have to go and be on this center line, either in Greenland, Iceland, or in this area of the North Atlantic. And then it crosses the very tip of Portugal and Spain, and then it finishes down in Santa Ponza area, Mallorca. So that'll give you a couple of minutes worth close to home. We have another annular then, February the 6th, 2027. So again, you have to be South Africa way for that, South America rather. And then another total the following year, 2027, again, 2nd of August. This time it goes through Gibraltar. So this is a good one. But of course, August, very, very hot there, but not as hot as it gets here. Now, this is a long eclipse, 6.5 minutes from Luxor, and it goes straight down the Red Sea. So the way of the world at the moment, I think Gibraltar is looking very nice for that one, even though you get less eclipse. After that, another annular, 2028, January 26th, again, well, sunset in Portugal and Spain for that one. And then 2028, July the 22nd, down in Australia, we have another total eclipse. So the greatest eclipse will be up Darwin area. This one does go through Sydney, but it's a sunset eclipse. You could see it from Sydney Opera Bridge. And then another annular in 2030, and so on and so on. So those are them coming up. So in terms of Wendy and myself, now this was our 13th eclipse, if you count annulars, or 12 if you don't. 2 of which we didn't see. One was a tragedy, which was 2009, which was a very long eclipse. We missed out on that one due to cloud, like Gaina. And of course, we didn't see the one in Britain in 1999 because we were down at Marazion. But the others we have seen either through cloud or in their entirety. But do take care of your eyes. You have to use the correct filtration to look after them because you only have one pair of eyes. So there you go. So that was our eclipse trip. Maybe Karen wants to say something because no, she doesn't. Thank you. Maggie, any final thoughts?
No, it was just a great eclipse. I mean, it was so wonderful that we actually saw the eclipse so well at the end. And I just wanted to say, some people, I watched the sky at night a couple of nights ago, about 10:30 at night, and Pete Lawrence was on there with some of the shots from our eclipse in Texas. So if you want some more stuff on it, you can see it there on BBC iPlayer.
Okay, thanks, Maggie. You'll make me blush. Are there any questions for any of us, from anybody?
Well, I'm going to just say about the shadow bands. We did have a really good display of shadow bands, but because of the thick cloud, well, thickish cloud, they were very dark. The last eclipse I went to down in Chile, which was that picture I showed on the first slide, the shadow bands were very prominent because it was very clear there. But on this occasion, it was almost dark and you could see the ground. And it just looked like it was shimmering, like you were looking to the bottom of a river. It was like really weird shadow bands, but that was due to the cloud.
Right, that's interesting.
Of course, cameras didn't pick it up because they were auto adjusting for the light dimming so quickly.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm glad you saw some anyway. That's good.
It was everywhere. It's fantastic. It was, but the cameras just didn't pick it up. I was chasing it with a video camera.
Yeah, I think the cloud did it for us, actually. As I say, I might have seen the other side of the cloud poking through on some exposures, but that was it. Sorry, was there a question in the room?
Did you buy the T-shirt before the eclipse or afterwards?
It was after, yeah, and the hat actually.
Did you haven't seen it?
Probably not. No.
Chris brought a T-shirt at just about every place we stopped at. He's got a
Yeah, I got
T-shirt from.
Well, I had all the kit
everywhere.
to take. I had a lot of kit to take, so no room
So
for
you didn't
clothes
take it, you
to
didn't
buy
take
the clothes.
T-shirts or anything. You just bought them as you went along.
No, I am blushing, Jim. Yes, yes. We did. My good lady wife actually spent some time in Washington. Yes. So there you go.
My dad did cycle touring, and that's, he used to send his dirty washing home and bought fancy socks. We went and
Good idea.
post the dirty ones home.
Post the washing home. Jim is suggesting you post the washing home. My word. All right. Any other questions from anybody or comments? Wendy, do you want to say anything? You have to unmute yourself and put your camera on. I take that as a no. Okay.
Hi there.
Are we going to organise a trip in Spain?
Right. Well, for your information, we have just booked today for 2026, and we've decided to go on a cruise. It's the Star Princess, if anyone wants to go on it, and it does a fortnight around Spain and Portugal. So it's very popular. We were told it came on sale today, but only if you've previously booked with Princess. It's on sale to the general public on the 23rd, but they're selling like hotcakes, we were told, from Americans who want to come over and see the eclipse, because you can go to places like Compostela and what have you, and they go nuts for that and the eclipse. So that's what we'll be doing in 26 anyway. And we'll see the eclipse from North Spain into the Atlantic. It's very, very hot, 12th of August, going to be stinking hot in Spain. So we thought that would be good. And Iceland and Greenland, we believe, will be clouded out, 80% cloud cover. So,
Weather forecast.
yeah. Okay. Right, if there's no more questions, then I'll move on with the other stuff that we normally do, points of interest. So basically tomorrow we've got the moon the furthest it can be. I think it's about 70% or so full. And we've got Jupiter at conjunction on the 18th, so that will be going into the morning sky. The full moon's on the 23rd, last quarter's the 30th, and the moon will be near Saturn on the 31st. That's the current state of the sky at the moment. So if you were to have clear skies tonight, and we hope to have them on Saturday at Fairwood, that's the kind of view you'd see. Bereft of planets, you'll notice, nothing at all in the sky, but a good selection of galaxies. We are in galaxy season now, so a lot of Leo and Virgo clusters there to look at. And then the morning sky, well, that's where you will find the planets. So yes, you've got Gaynor's favorite constellation, Corona Borealis. We've got Mercury, Mars, Neptune, and Saturn on the horizon now in the morning. Pluto's up there as well. And as you can see, there's no night at all at the moment. So what we're doing having an observing night on Saturday? Well, we've got a lovely moon to look at, and we will find you other stuff, we promise. So despite what it says there, no night, we will still crack on with that. Got to take what you can. And there you can see, you know, this is the daytime sky. This is the morning, that's the evening. You've got the moon dominating the evening sky and the morning sky. You've got a little bit of Saturn now starting to come up and a little bit of Mars, but apart from that, nothing much. We do have this, of course, coming up on the 19th, so shortly on Sunday. This will be the ISS going over the center of the moon. So you can see that from Fairwood of an evening. So that will take 1.62 seconds, not quite blink and miss it, but you will see it pass over the moon. And the photo ephemeris shows that we'll get a good view from Fairwood if you want to see that, if it's clear. Now, the ISS is an evening object. Did you see it last evening? It was colossally bright through the gaps in the clouds. Dazzlingly so.
I saw it last Friday too.
Yeah,
The star party. Yeah.
very good. Yeah, we saw it at the star party. So you got some great passes of an evening now and early morning. And the sun, well, the sun has been amazing, hasn't it? I mean, that was today's sun from STO. But this happened yesterday. It was an X9 flare from that active region that's now rotated at the back of the sun. It hit us as an X3.4 flare, took blackouts of shortwave radio in China and America. But had we been in the path of the X9 flare, it might have been a different picture. So we just got away with that one. But I hear there's another one coming around now, isn't there? Which might be of a comparable size. So that's very interesting. And yeah, you can see the degraded radio that resulted from that blackout, it also caught a bit of Britain as well, with nothing on the shortwave bands. The ham bands are completely dead because of this at the moment. Anything below 30 megahertz is attenuated. And well, this has been the culprit. Of course, AR 3664 is comparable, they say, in size to the famous Carrington sunspot of 1859, which caused devastation then. And had this fired off in our direction, could have done so today, only many times more. It would have taken the electricity out for 2 years. No internet, no electricity for 2 years, maybe. Well, let's hope the next one that comes around doesn't do that. But we've had some great images of it. So I believe this is Stephen Nicola doing white light images of various parts of that and other spots. And great black and white images they've taken with some lovely close-up detail there of those spots. And also in hydrogen alpha light. It looks very different, doesn't it? I got the PST out the other day to have a look. It looked quite different. Up in Aberdeen, Sherry Carl, who's a very well-known solar photographer, took these lovely shots with her lunt there in white light and hydrogen alpha light, showing the exquisite detail. So lovely images. And well, did we expect the aurora at the star party? No, we didn't. Well, we knew we had a red alert. We hoped. Yeah. But of course, we wanted to do some astronomy, didn't we? We took all the scopes over there. They were all useless, weren't they? Because the clouds came over, but the clouds weren't clouds. They were aurora. What we thought was white cloud turned to green, turned to red, blue, you name it. It was just fantastic. So,
Phenomenal.
Wonderful that Rob had us down there and did that. And you can see we caught some of those aurora. Gate crashed, as you can see, by a few members of the caravan site there, saying, what's going on here then? What's these cameras doing there? And you can see John Beer doing his workshop, and then everyone just got totally disinterested when they saw the aurora. They said, bye, John, thank you. Look at that. Oh, wow. That was it. So that was really, really good. And no doubt you've seen this video. I won't play it again. We showed it at the start. I'll put it at the end of the recording if everyone wants to have a look at it. But Paul Howard did a wonderful job down at Freshwater Bay in Pembroke, and he set up his Sony A7 camera and took this time lapse, which is incredible. So, and this is south facing. If you notice, there's Leo diving. So these are northern lights in the south part of the sky, folks. I mean, it was all over the sky, wasn't it? And the blog, if you go to our blog site, you'll see that, it's full of those pictures. So if we have a quick look, this is the blog. So we've had one or two there. John Beer, I think this is with your Newt, with your F4 Newt, doing a wonderful job there of the Needle Galaxy and Companion. And look at these little star things that we get now with that type of telescope. I'd be rubbing them out. I would, I'd be rubbing them out. But, yeah, that's why you got the scope. Yeah, his scope does that. So that's great. Wonderful job. Well done, John. And yeah, the star party. I mean, the site is full of all these photos that we did. You can see us having the Barbie there and all the range of instruments that you brought. Ada setting up his scope there. We had the C8, and all of them are useless. Absolutely useless because of the aurora. Chris Pale took some great shots, and we even had Will there setting up his scope, getting some tuition. I mean, the main event was the aurora. It was just phenomenal, wasn't it? And your photos are all on the blog and the video, so do have a look at them. They're just exquisite. And you can see, spellbound. There's Gaynor and Mike. Yeah, lovely. And then the clouds came in eventually, but I heard the aurora was even stronger towards 4 o'clock when it got daylight, and it got to a Category 5 hurricane, I think, strength. Wow. It was just amazing over in America. So there you go. And more of the sun there and all sorts of things. I think it's Anne doing her all sky camera the next day, hoping against hope for more aurora, and she got it. It's in there. These black and white images, but you can see the aurora was in there. Yeah. And then more from the nights. These are Chris Plale's images, I think, which is really good. I particularly like this one. I
Yeah.
think you did an excellent job here. Again, to the south. This is the moon setting
Yeah.
to the bay.
This
and
is online actually,
you're-
so well done.
Yeah,
Chris.
well
These are
done,
great.
Chris.
Yeah.
Really, really good. And another nice one there of his tent. So Chris pitched a tent and enjoyed the aurora there till late in the night. Very good. Okay, lovely shots of the moon there by Steve. Lovely crescent moon. More of the sun with these lovely spots and so on. So that's the moon, the blog. Right, so I think we better wrap it up there because we're getting on a bit, aren't we? So as I say, next time it would have been the AGM, but we're going to have this talk on smart scopes, and you can see the program is full there coming up. So if there's nothing else, we'll say thank you, and thank you to Maggie, to Paul, to Gaynor, to Wendy, Karen, everyone who's had an input tonight for the Eclipse aficionados, and we'll say a good night. Okay,
Oh,
there you go.
Oh.
Good night.
Thank you.
oh, thanks a lot.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks. Good night online.
Good night.
Good night. Good night. Good
See you
night.
next time.
Bye bye.
Let's begin with the solar wind. Photons sailing through the void. A lonely vacuum if you have been from sun to earth where the dance begins. A dancing light across the sky.